Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, I am Donna, and for those of you who are not, thank you so much. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you my Palette Roulette. For those of you who are unfamiliar, my Palette Roulette series was inspired by Danny from her channel Danibo. She does a palette a week series in which she uses an app on the App Store to decide which palette she'll be using for the week, and at the end of the week she decides whether she's keeping that palette or not, dependent on her use of that palette and how she felt about her use of that palette. She came up with the idea from a subreddit like anti-consumerism or using your makeup up subreddit, that she decided to do this based on that. She had an enormous collection. She felt, and enormous is subjective. To some people enormous is my collection. To some people enormous is 5 palettes. So she had what she deemed an enormous collection for herself and decided to do this palette a week challenge for herself, where she uses an app. It decides for her what palette she's using, and she uses that palette for a week, and at the end of the week she decides whether she's going to get rid of that palette or keep it. My Palette Roulette is just a Palette Roulette series where I use an app also to choose a palette that I will be using for the week, and at the end of that week I tell you about the palette. Mine is not so much a decluttering series as Danny's is, and the reason for that is because my collection is actually quite new. Everything that I have has been accumulated over the last year and a couple months, and I am not looking to get rid of my items. I'm just looking to get use of my items. So I started doing this palette a week to inspire me to use palettes that maybe have gotten lost in my collection, or maybe I used for a few days and then got that bright shiny new thing and it went into my collection and I forgot all about it. So with that being said, let's jump into it. Last week, the Decide Now app that I used chose my upside down chose my Morphe 35M Boss Mood palette. I did get this palette from a friend of mine as a gift, and I think I had used it once in a Get Ready With Me, which I will link up in the cards up here in the corner for you to view if you'd like. You open the palette and this is what it looks like. This guy does go over the top of the shadows to protect the shadows. It also has the shadow names on it. Morphe is not my favorite formula to use. It is kind of hit and miss for me. I also kind of don't like the way that they set up their palettes with a lot of them just don't have shade names. This one with these shade names here, like there is plenty of room that they could have, you know, put the shade names on the actual palette. It doesn't have a mirror. It is a giant palette. I'm not complaining. I do love this palette, and you'll hear that soon throughout this. I am going to swatch these for you. There is a lot of shades in here, so this is going to take a hot minute, but I'm going to do it row by row. So this row, this row, this row, this row, and this row, and then we will get to this. Okay, so this is the first set here. This is the first row of colors. That first one starting at the top is Light of the Party. Second is Pop Star. Third is Stroke of Luck. Fourth is Express Yourself. Fifth is Nude Tude. Sixth is Green with Envy. And seventh is Sheen Stealer. So with these shades, the top shade there, that Light of the Party, I use almost every day as a brow bone highlight. It is my brow bone today. This is what I like to call the green row because it is almost all the shades in this row are green. The Pop Star color, that yellow shimmery color, is a really pretty green gold chartreusey color. I did my Get Ready With Me that was linked up in the cards with this very first row of shades. Green is my favorite color. These were not some of the best greens that I have ever encountered, to be honest. This one here, really, I used a lot as a shadow to buff out a crease color, which is actually what nope, I'm not using that one today. But it showed up more like, really, it made my eyes look dead, and so I just kind of quit using it. It kind of turned gray on my eyes, and I don't really know why. It's a super vibrant color of green. This brown down here is actually like an army green color with some shimmer in it. It's actually really pretty. This color here, which is called Green with Envy, is actually the darker green color that I have in my crease today. I actually quite enjoy this color. As dark as it is, it buffs out beautifully. It looks really pretty on my skin, and I have a really olive complected skin tone, so sometimes greens, especially this color of green, the olive greens, don't look great on my skin, but that one really did. If I could get rid of one or two in this row, it would be this one here, which is called Nude Tude. I just feel like it's not brown enough, not green enough, and it doesn't transform very well on my skin. And of course this one, like I said, because it kind of just turns like this gray muddy color on my skin. So this is the second row, and we have, starting at the top, Stand Out, which is a beautiful green gold shift shimmer there. Then we have Bold Moves, which is a really pretty green chartreuse shade. And then we have Electric Energy, which honestly is a shade that I didn't really like in this palette. Next we have Hello Sunshine. Again, not a really pretty shade. It kind of reminds me of baby poop. But it is what I use to blend out that olive tone, and it does function well. It is this color here, and it does function well with this green up here. It is beautiful with that green, but on its own, not a great standalone color. The next one, that first brown there, is called Play It Cool. And then we have Hot Stuff, which is kind of a copper penny shimmer metallic shade. It is super pretty. And then we have Peachy Keen, which I think is more of a satin than it is a matte, because it does have kind of a sheen to it. Not a horrible sheen, just a slight sheen. And it's a lot more buttery than the other browns in this palette. If I had to get rid of two in this row, I would probably honestly get rid of this first brown here, which is the one called Play It Cool. It's just, I mean, it's a good, nice toned brown, but it doesn't show up very well on the eyes. It's only there for a transition color, I feel like, because that's all you could ever really use it for. It doesn't show up on my fair skin. I know it's not going to show up on any skin that's any darker than mine, so that would be the only shade I would throw out in this row. I really think that these two rows are pretty fantastic rows, but like I said, this brown in this row is the only one I would throw out. It just doesn't, it's too similar to this one, and this one has much better pigmentation than this one. This one just doesn't show up. It definitely couldn't be its own standalone color. And honestly, the other brown, the Peachy Keen, the Peachy Keen brown is a much prettier brown with a little bit more dimension to it. So I think that would be the only shade I would throw out in that row. Okay, this next row here is probably honestly one of my most used rows. This palette I used a lot over this last week. But this row here is probably one of my most used rows. So we have that first orange is called Fired Up. That second orange is called Bright Eyes, and it is a beautiful orange with kind of a gold undertone, a gold shift to it. Next one is Bossy AF, which is a beautiful red shimmer shade. I use that so often. The next one is FOTD, which is that dark red matte there, which I feel like is a little bit sheeny. I do have it just on my finger here. I feel like it's a little bit sheeny. It is a super buttery red color. It is beautiful, a beautiful crease color. It blends out beautifully. You can deepen up the crease with it. It's just a beautiful red color. Then we have that brown, which is called Talk Dirty. I found that that was a really easy brown to work with as well. I mean, just the swatch alone is not super patchy. It's just a really buttery color. I found that the more dry the formula of the mattes were in this, the less likely I was gravitated towards using them, because they were just super patchy and hard to use. But that one was not one of them. The next one is called Hot to Trot. It is a darker, like gray brown, almost purple looking, to be honest. It looks a little more like dark purple on the eye. Nice shimmer color. And then we have Sparks Fly, which is that deep dark brown, which I used often in my outer V. I think it's a beautiful dark brown color. I don't honestly believe that I would throw away any one color in this row. I used the poop out of this row. I love all the colors in this row. I have a really awesome eye look when I get to like putting those in here for you using this orange. I just loved it. It looked so great, even with like purples and reds. It was just really pretty. The next row I have for you is this one, and we have that first like kind of corally looking color up there is called Confidence, and it is a beautiful red orange shimmer. It's just so pretty. Then we have Red Carpet, which you can see is a little bit patchy. It is this dark orange color here that honestly I do not believe needed to be in the palette. We have, you know, this orange here, which was a great orange. We have some reds here that kind of borderline that color there. Like it didn't, we definitely have this one here, which was a little bit better of a color. So we didn't need it. That would probably be one of the colors I would throw out of this palette. The next one is that purple there called Power Slayer. I have to be honest, it wasn't the best purple that I have ever used in my life. It was really patchy on the eye and didn't really work well. I mean, you could probably see that in the swatch. This I had to like run over 3 times to get it to swatch very well, and then it's just super powdery. There was a lot lost on that first swatch, and I don't know, it's just not one of my favorites. I would probably throw that out as well. So those two, you know, that second and third color would be 2 shades that I would just take out of this row, out of this palette entirely. That next shade, that really pretty royal purple, is called Daredevil, and it really does look like that on your eye. It is just so pretty and easy to work with. That next red-ish color is called Vampy Vixen, and this shade right there is part of the reason why I say this one right here could probably just go out of this palette, because between this Vampy Vixen here and this orange here, you pretty much have this color if you mix the two. So you don't really need it. But this Vampy Vixen is a really pretty like orange toned red, kind of a burnt orange color, and it is just really pretty. The next color is Sweet Beets. It kind of pulled more pink on my eye than it did red, which was a little bit disappointing. It kind of turned out like this magenta color, and I was truly expecting a red, but that it didn't work out so hot to be a red. It's more of a pink, and I think that you can see that in the swatch. And the last one in that row is yeah, color Persona. It is a really pretty red shimmer color. It is kind of super soft to the touch. I feel like if I pan a color in this palette, it will probably be that red. I have it on my eyes today, but I went over it. It was a little too Christmassy, this look for me, so I went over it with that first shade in the palette called Light of the Party, this one here, and just kind of lightened it up so it looked a little less stocking-esque. So those are those two rows. Like I said, I use these two rows in the palette more often than not. You'll see that in the eye looks that I have. So we're going to swatch this last row and then we'll get more into talking about this palette and the eye looks, showing you the eye looks. I'll be right back. Okay, home stretch. This is the last row in the palette, and that first color there is called Transformer. And it is a purple, but it doesn't really, oh, it's a horrible color, you guys. It is not a pretty color. It kind of reminds me of a purple, but also a blue. It kind of wants to be like a periwinkle on my eyes, and it's a super dry formula. It's just really hard to dig into, really hard to use. I've used it a couple of times. You can barely tell that it's dug into because I just couldn't pick up enough color to make it worth it on my lid. The next color there is called Center of Attention. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's a sheeny metallic like purple black color, and it is really beautiful. I really do like it on the lid. I think it's a really pretty sheeny black purple color. It doesn't have a whole lot of purple shift, so it really honestly just comes out kind of black on your lids, but because of the purple shift to it, it goes really well and blends really easily into a lot of the purple colors. The next shade there is called Indiglo Queen, and it is a really pretty like mauve purple, just a really good deep purple. The next one is Grape Expectations, which is beautiful, one of my favorites in the palette. The next one is Candy Crush, which is this color here. It is a red tone. It is one of my favorite reds in the palette. Granted, there's only a couple, but it is one of my favorite reds in the palette. It is such a buttery matte, and it actually comes out almost a true brick red color, and it appears that way also on your eyes. I used it a lot for my outer V. I think it is in this eye look as well, deepening up that outer V, or giving some red, some pop of red into that outer V to go with the shimmer on my lids. It's just really pretty. The next color there is Sultry Ways, and this is a color that I really think could just go. It appears to be kind of a metallic shimmer, or a metallic or a shimmer in the pan. It is kind of dry. It's very sheeny, but not very shimmery, if that makes any sense. It does appear to have some like purple glitter in it, but I think that they did a much better job with that in this color than in that one. And I don't really quite understand why there's two of them in this palette. The next one is called Black Magic, and it is, I believe there's a Black Magic in one of their other palettes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's a color that's been in other palettes of theirs before. If I had to get rid of anything out of this row, like, I firmly believe that we did not need 3 blacks in this one row. Like, we have this one here, and this one here. This one is kind of a crapshoot. Like, sometimes it looks really good with the eye look that you're putting it into, and sometimes it just looks really bad. I think these 2 blacks, this one here and this one here, would have been plenty blacks. I don't think that they need 3 blacks in here. I think we could do away with this color here. It's just not a great color. It doesn't work very well in any eye look. It kind of wants to be blue, wants to be purple. It doesn't know what it wants, and it's actually a kind of It's actually a very dry color and super hard to work with. I have some Morphe brushes that I pull out when I put a color on my eye that doesn't want to blend. This color is the color that I used those brushes with. They're super scratchy, not brushes that I like to use on my eyes at all because of how scratchy they are. But I don't declutter them because they work really well with some of those shadows that don't just want to blend out. The other thing I can say is the darker colors kind of irritated my skin a lot. They irritated my eyes a lot. I have a perpetual eye watering problem in the first place. I'm going to stand over here and kind of filter in some eye looks that I did. With the darker colors in this palette, I found that my eyes just did not want to stop watering. They itched at the end of the day. I can typically wear my eyeshadows for, 10-15 hours without there being a problem, and I would find that this week while I was wearing this shadow palette, I would end most of my days as soon as I got home from work. I would, sit down for a little bit, be with my kids for a little bit, look on YouTube for a little bit. But by like couple hours after being home, I had to get my eye makeup off. My eyes itched. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't awful. Like, they weren't like so scratchy that I couldn't wear the makeup, and I will continue to dig into this palette. I do like this palette a lot, but it wasn't as soft and like agreeable to my skin, and I do have super sensitive skin, as other palettes in my collection. Morphe is not my favorite formula, let's go with that, but I do really dig the color story in this palette. So I will tell you, there were quite a few in here that I would get rid of. I told you guys that as we were going through swatches. But some standout colors for me were, of course, this purple here. It is a beautiful, beautiful color. I think that belongs in every palette. I love that purple. This green here is not a bad green. This green matte here is a beautiful green matte. It is in my eye look today. This red was one of my favorites, and this black is actually a really amazing black. I don't think that this palette needed 3 black shadows, no matter how different they were. I don't think that it needed 3 black shadows. I also don't think, honestly, that you need all these greens in here. Like this dark green, sure, they could have probably skipped on this one here. This one ish. I don't really think that this is the best green in the palette. I don't also think that this is the best green in the palette. I do like this green. I like the shimmers. Their shimmers in this palette were the standouts for me for the most part. There were a couple in there that weren't awesome, but I think it goes right back down to like looking at a shimmer and thinking it should be a shimmer, and then it actually comes out more matte, which is like this black right here. It very much looks like a shimmer. It's got some purple glitter in it, and then you put it on and it just looks like a dulled down black. Some of the mattes in here were super buttery. Some of the mattes were super scratchy. One thing I can say about this formula in this palette is it's not consistent. There isn't a whole lot of consistency in it. Some of these shades are going to go on like a dream, and some of them are going to be harder than F to blend out, and you're gonna be like, what is going on? But honestly, that's the same perspective I have in almost every Morphe palette I have. I don't have very many Morphe palettes because it's just not, what is that? It's just not my favorite formula. It's just not. But I do love the colors in this palette, and I really enjoyed my time with it over the last week. So with that being said, we are going to pull, and if there's any other questions that you guys want to know about the palette, please list them down below. I'd be happy to answer the questions for you. I'm just not going to spend a whole lot more time going into that palette because it is such a big palette. It's really hard to just take it, one shade at a time and go through it to that extent. So if you have any questions, please let me know. So I'm going to pull up my Decide Now app, which is how I get my palettes for my Palette Roulette. It is through the App Store, and all I did was name the wheel and then put every single palette that I own in this wheel. If I do decide to get rid of some of the palettes that are in this wheel, I can easily go in and edit the wheel. I'll take that palette out. I can add new palettes in all the time as I'm getting new palettes, if I'm getting new palettes. And it's super simple to use. You just put all of your information in there and then you just press it and spin the wheel. My palette's name is Palette a Week, inspired by Danibo. And I am going to press it, and we are going to watch it spin. Oh dear. So the palette it chose for me is ABH Subculture. Let me go get that real quick. Alright, this is Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. It is a beautiful palette. I love the packaging of the palette. It is a nice like felt blue, and you turn it over. It has all the information on it. I've had this palette since it first came out. It was one of the palettes that one of the only palettes that I can remember being so excited about. I had to have it before it came to Ulta. As soon as it popped up on the ABH website, I was at work. I had an alarm set and I purchased it. It has a mirror in the palette, and then this is the shades in the palette. I'm sure every single one of you has seen this palette because it did have quite a bit of controversy when it first came into market. I'm sure it would still have controversy if people were using it regularly, but the formula on here is pressed pigments. It is so hard to work with, and I hardly ever dig it out. Because of that, I will only dig it out if I have enough time to use it. So this is going to be super interesting to try and use in the hour I give myself before work every day. I might have to wake up earlier this week. I love Subculture. I love the color story. It's just so beautiful. This Roxy color here is probably the prettiest peachy matte that I have ever used. This color and this color, which are Cube and Electric, worst. I cannot stand them. I cannot stand them, so I might not use them very much. But I really don't mind this palette, but it is super hard to work with, and you have to take your time. So we will see how much use this gets this week. Well, I wear makeup every day, so I'm gonna perform a makeup look every single day. But the last several palettes, I have not had to bring in any of my single shadows, and I just might have to do that with this palette because I don't foresee it being very usable in that hour I give myself in the mornings. So with that being said, that is my palette roulette video for this week. I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing about the Morphe 35M Boss Mood palette, and that you look forward to seeing me use Subculture. And let me know if you are also doing palette roulette or a palette a week kind of program here, and what palette you're using, what palette you chose to use this week. I would really enjoy hearing from you. I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this series, or are enjoying this series. If you are, please let me know. Give me a big thumbs up. Write a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what your thoughts are on this, and let me know that you're enjoying this. I really am enjoying it myself, but I want to make sure you are as well, and it is something that you want to watch. I hope that you guys liked me enough, or liked this video enough, that you choose to want to stick around and see me in the comment section and continue to watch my videos. I thank you guys so much for coming and clicking on my video. I know that you don't have to, so it warms my heart that you do. And I hope that you'll choose to subscribe to my channel on the way out if you're not already. Thank you so much for joining me again today, and until next time, guys, bye.